Hi everyone, thanks for joining me on this part 4 of the JamLabs tutorials. Part 3, we finished by creating the site-to-site VPN and making sure that could connect okay. So in this part, what we're going to do is create an Azure Exchange Edge server and connect to it from the on-premise network, just to make sure connectivity is all working and everything's fine. And that's about it really. So let's make a start. So I've got my Azure portals opened. VPN is connected, and if I quickly have a look at all resources, I don't currently have a virtual machine, just the site-to-site VPN objects that we created. So I'm going to click on virtual machines and add a new virtual machine, and from there I'm going to select Windows Server, and what I'm after is Windows Server 2012 R2 Data Center Edition. Yep, that's the one I want. Click create. Well, I'm going to have a quick look at the deployment models. You can have Resource Manager or Classic. I'm going to stick with Resource Manager, which is the newer version. So giving that a name of Edge 1, ultimately this will be my Exchange Edge machine. Username of domain 105, passwords to go in there, and subscription. I've only got the free trial at the moment, so I'm going to put that in. Resource group we created in the last video, so I'm going to select the existing resource group 1, locations Western Europe where I am, and click OK. And now we come to the fun bit, which is choosing the size. As this is a test machine in a lab, I'm not too worried about performance. So let's have a quick look to see what options there are available to me. Okay, so some of these are looking quite expensive, $699. Let me just scroll back up to the DS1 and let's go with that one. So at the very top we've got storage account. As this is the first virtual machine, I don't have a storage account before, so it's going to create me a new one. Network, we've already defined that as VNet1, and the subnet is the 10.10.0.0 network that we created before. So let's put the machine on that. Public IP address, yes please, I'd like one, so I've just set that as new edge. And security group, it comes with the default security group that allows remote desktop connections in. Obviously, as we build the edge server, we'll be putting more inbound and outbound rules in there, but for now the default RDP inbound rule will be fine. Again, as this is a lab machine, I'm not too worried about monitoring, so I'm going to disable that and save a bit of money. And availability, again, set to none. And I've just noticed that this type is set to premium SSD, so I'm going to go back and change that to a standard. Again, this is a lab machine, I'm not too worried about performance, so a standard disk will be just fine. Let's click OK on that. Yep, that's changed back to standard, so that's good. Let's click OK. And it starts to provision, so we'll just give it a few seconds. Generally these don't take too long, and deployment succeeded. So it's saying the machine is connected. It's got a public IP address. Now, because I'm going to be shutting these machines and deallocating the machines, the public IP address will change over and over again, which is fine. And I've got ways around in some of the later tutorials on how to get around that issue. And the private IP address is on the 10.10 network, which is on subnet 1, which is what we configured it to be. So we're just connecting to it on its external IP address, just to make sure it's good. So let's type in domain 105, which was the admin user account we set up in the config. Let's click OK. Yes to the certificate error, and the machine should fire up. It does take a few seconds or minutes to settle down, as this is the first log on after the machine was provisioned. So let's just bear with it and let it do what it needs to do to set up the machine. Okay, it's thinking about it. And any second now, it should pop into life. And there we go. So I'm just going to let the desktop load and let the services fire up. And we'll have a quick look at what IP addresses have been assigned to this, just to make sure everything's in working order. Okay, so let's just open up command prompt. And have a look at what the internal IP address is. And it is 10.10.0.4, which is on our subnet 1. Let's just close that. And let's disconnect, because what I'd like to do is connect again, but on the internal IP address this time. So if we jump onto the remote routing and access server and open up command. Now, one of the things I always do is try to ping a server to see if it's available. So if I ping this, the ping will actually fail, because on the inbound network rules, I haven't allowed ping packets to go through, because the only protocol I've got enabled is RDP by default. So let's try connecting to it on the RDP protocol. So it's 10.10.0.4, and yep, it's connected. It's asking me to log in, so I'm going to log in again with the admin account of domain 105, and that's looking good, and the machine's up. Perfect. So I've now connected over the site-to-site VPN on the internal IP address of 10.10.0.4, and that's possible because one of the things I did when we set up the remote routing and access server in part 3 was we set a network route to the 10.10.0.0 network through the RAS server. So that's what. So if I jump over to the Exchange server now and try connect to the 10.10.0.4, this will fail without further configuration, because this doesn't know how to get to the 10.10.0 network. So what I'm going to do is set up a persistent route. Now this basically tells the server to get to the 10.10 network, you need to push the packets to the .56 remote routing and access server, and let that handle the route out to the 10.10 network. So firing up command prompt. I'm just going to paste that in. And now what's happened is it's added a persistent route, so that route will always be there. And now if I try connect to the Azure server of the site-to-site VPN, it allows me to connect, because the Exchange server now knows to get to that 10.10 network in Azure, it needs to send packets to be routed through the RAS server. So that's brilliant. And I'm just going to do the same on Exchange server 2, because these two servers are going to need to talk to the Edge server in Azure as we build our lab. So let's just quickly do that now. Perfect. One other thing, because I want to connect to it through my remote desktop manager, and I've created a shortcut session there, I'm going to need to do the same on my machine. So there it's created with a 10.10.0.4 internal IP address. So my host machine, my Windows 10 host machine, I need to add the same route again. So again, I'm going to run as administrator, and I'm going to paste that in. Okay, on this one I've already added the route, so it's saying the object already exists, so that's fine. You should get an OK when you first add this in. So let's connect to the session. and the session's gone in. Perfect. So now my Exchange servers, my Edge server are talking on the internal network, and that's pretty much the site-to-site VPN and the on-premise and cloud-based server infrastructure talking to each other now without any issues. So in the next part, we'll be actually installing the Edge services and starting to configure that as well. So please join me, and thank you for watching. Bye.